When parents bring us a child with ADHD, the complaint often sounds like this. He knows what he is supposed to do. I have told him 1,000 times. So why doesn't he do it? That is the right question. But parents are often offered the wrong answer. The wrong answer is that the child does not care, is lazy, is manipulative, or simply needs harsher consequences. The more useful answer is this. ADHD is usually not a knowledge problem. It is a performance problem. The child may know the rule perfectly and still fail to retrieve it, hold it in mind, inhibit the first impulse, begin the task, sustain effort, or notice time passing at the moment the rule is needed. Knowledge lives in one room. Performance has to show up in another room, on time, wearing shoes. That distinction changes the entire parent conversation. If we assume the child lacks knowledge, we explain more. If we assume the child lacks reliable execution, we change the environment. We shorten the instruction. We make time visible. We move the reward closer. We practice the routine when nobody is furious. We stop asking a developing nervous system to perform like a fully staffed executive office. And one important caution, not every difficult behavior is ADHD, and not every ADHD symptom is misbehavior. Our job is not to excuse everything. Our job is to identify the mechanism accurately enough that the intervention has a chance of working. Many families arrive trapped in a moral story. The child is careless. The parent is inconsistent. The teacher thinks the child is choosing not to try. The child concludes, I am the bad kid. Once that story hardens, every lost worksheet becomes evidence for the prosecution. Therapists can interrupt that cycle without becoming permissive. We can say, the behavior is a problem, but the child is not the problem. We still hold the limit. We simply remove the character indictment. Your backpack is still on the floor as information. You never care about anything as shame. Information can guide behavior. Shame usually burns attention and regulation without teaching the missing skill. We should also be curious before we become confident. Is the child sleeping? Is there a learning disorder making homework feel impossible? Anxiety making transitions look oppositional? Trauma producing hypervigilance? Depression? Language difficulty? Autism? Tics? Medication rebound? Family chaos? Or a classroom mismatch? ADHD commonly travels with company. If the plan keeps failing, do not simply increase the volume. Reassess the formulation. Parents deserve the same generosity. Exhausted adults become reactive adults. We are not training ideal parents in a laboratory. We are helping real parents build a system they can repeat on a Wednesday night when dinner is late, the sibling is screaming, and the dog has eaten something medically expensive. The most practical parenting principle is to put the executive functions outside the child's head. If working memory is unreliable, stop storing the entire morning routine in spoken language. Put it on a visible checklist. Bathroom, dressed, breakfast, backpack, shoes. If time is invisible, use a timer, a visual countdown, and transition warnings. If task initiation is hard, do not shout the same instruction from farther away. Move closer, get the child's attention, give one concrete instruction, and help launch the first step. A useful instruction is brief, specific, and stated as the action you want. Put the blue blocks in the bin beats, clean this mess. Shoes on. Please beats a 5-minute speech about personal responsibility. Then pause. Parents often stack 6 commands in one breath and interpret the child completing command number 3 as defiance. Ask the child to repeat the instruction, not as a courtroom cross-examination, but as a memory support. Reduce competing stimulation when possible. Break homework into visible chunks. Use a body double, an adult quietly present while the child starts. Schedule movement between effortful tasks. Prepare materials the night before. The environment is not cheating. Glasses are not cheating for poor vision, and a checklist is not cheating for weak working memory. Timers help, but timers are not magic. A timer that merely announces disaster from across the room can become another noise the child ignores. Pair it with a clear next action and adult support. When it rings, I will help you save the game, and then we are going to the table. Predictability lowers the cost of switching. The goal is not permanent dependence. We provide scaffolding now and fade it as the skill becomes more reliable. Independence is not created by withdrawing support before the nervous system can carry the load. Parents of children with ADHD often spend the entire day detecting failure. That is understandable because failure is loud. Compliance is quiet. A child who argues for 10 minutes receives 10 minutes of intense adult attention. A child who puts on shoes receives silence. The nervous system learns from what is immediate, noticeable, and repeated, not from what adults sincerely intended to reinforce. Teach parents to use specific praise. Not merely good job, but you started when I asked. You kept your hands to yourself when you were frustrated. You checked the list without being reminded. Specific praise tells the child which behavior produced the positive outcome. It also retrains the parent's attention to detect improvement before perfection. Rewards should be close enough in time to compete with the present moment. For many younger children, a vague promise of a wonderful weekend is economically meaningless. A point, token, privilege, or brief preferred activity delivered today has more instructional power. Start with 1 or 2 target behaviors. Make success likely. Let the child help choose rewards. Review the plan calmly, not during the explosion. Do not remove rewards the child already earned unless the system was explicitly designed that way. Otherwise, the child learns that success is never secure. And do not build a rewards program so complicated that the parent needs an accounting department. If nobody can run it for more than 4 days, it is not a treatment plan. It is office decor. The deeper purpose is not bribery. Reinforcement supplies the immediate feedback that ADHD often requires while habits and self-efficacy develop. Over time, we pair external rewards with competence, pride, connection, and increasing independence. Consequences work best when they are brief, predictable, proportionate, and boring. The aim is to teach, not to make the child suffer enough to prove that the parent is serious. Long punishments often create more opportunities for argument, resentment, and parental inconsistency. A consequence delivered next Saturday may have very little connection to an impulsive act that occurred today. For safe, minor attention-seeking behavior, planned ignoring can reduce the payoff, but only when parents are prepared to reinforce the first appropriate behavior that follows. We do not ignore aggression, dangerous behavior, property destruction, or a child in genuine distress. Safety comes first. When a privilege is lost, keep the explanation short. You threw the controller, so the controller rests for tonight. We try again tomorrow. No closing argument. No character analysis. No 20-minute lecture delivered during a neurological house fire. That is not parenting. It is a podcast with a captive audience. After the child is calm, practice the replacement behavior. What can you say when the game ends? Where can the controller go? How do you ask for 2 more minutes? Consequences suppress behavior temporarily. Rehearsal teaches what should happen instead, and parents need permission to repair. I was right to stop the hitting, but I was wrong to call you selfish. I am sorry. Let's reset. Repair does not weaken authority. It models accountability while protecting the relationship in which all future coaching must occur. A dysregulated child has reduced access to language, working memory, flexibility, and problem solving. The very capacities ADHD already strains. That is why a brilliant explanation given at peak escalation often produces nothing except a louder escalation. Coach parents to regulate first and teach second. Lower the adult voice. Use fewer words. Reduce the audience. Create physical space. Name the immediate task. You are safe. Hands down. We will talk when your body is calmer. Some children benefit from movement, cold water, pressure, breathing, music, or a quiet place. Others experience forced calming strategies as another demand. Individualize. Co-regulation is not capitulation. The limit remains. No hitting, no driving off, no destroying property. But the adult stops trying to win the intellectual debate while the child's alarm system is in charge. Once the child has returned to baseline, keep the debrief short. What happened? What signal was missed? What replacement action will we practice? And how do we repair harm? Parents also need a personal exit plan. A phrase such as, "I am getting too angry to be useful. I will return in 2 minutes," can prevent an adult nervous system from joining the emergency. We should normalize that the parent's regulation is part of the intervention, not evidence that the child has won. Children with ADHD can receive an extraordinary number of corrections in a day. If every interaction becomes a demand, the parent slowly turns into a probation officer and the child becomes an expert in avoiding surveillance. Treatment has to include moments in which nobody is fixing anybody. Recommend a small amount of regular child-led positive time, even 10 minutes, during which the parent notices, follows, and enjoys the child without teaching, quizzing, correcting, or checking the phone. This is not a reward for good behavior. It is maintenance of the attachment system. Help families notice strengths that often travel alongside the impairment: humor, intensity, creativity, curiosity, courage, rapid idea generation, enthusiasm, and the ability to become deeply engaged. We should not romanticize disability, but neither should the treatment story become a catalog of defects. The child needs to hear, in words and repeated experience, "You are more important than this problem. We will keep working on the problem together." That message reduces shame and makes cooperation more likely, not less. For school-age children, effective care often combines parent training in behavior management, school supports, and, when clinically indicated, medication. The school is not merely the place where symptoms are reported. It is part of the treatment environment. A daily report card, preferential seating, reduced distraction, written directions, task chunking, movement opportunities, and appropriate educational supports can convert repeated failure into usable feedback. The target should be functional and observable, starting independent work, completing a defined portion, using a break appropriately, bringing materials home. Be good is not a measurable treatment goal. Home and school should reinforce the same few behaviors rather than launching 12 unrelated improvement campaigns. Medication is not a parenting failure, and it is not a moral shortcut. For some children, it creates enough attentional and inhibitory bandwidth for instruction, relationships, and behavioral strategies to work. It requires thoughtful diagnosis, monitoring of benefit and adverse effects, dose adjustment, and continuing psychosocial support. Medication does not teach a morning routine. It may make learning and executing that routine more possible. Development matters. For children under 6, parent training in behavior management is generally the first-line approach before medication. Adolescents need more collaboration, privacy, autonomy, driving and substance use assessment, and systems they help design. The central principle remains the same: match the demand and support to the child's developmental capacity. Consider Evan, age 9. Every morning ends in shouting. His parents say he refuses to get ready. The first version of the plan is more reminders and bigger consequences. Nothing changes. The revised formulation identifies weak initiation, poor time awareness, distraction, and too many verbal commands. The family prepares clothes and the backpack at night. A 5-step visual list goes on the bathroom door. The parent gives one instruction at a time, uses a visible countdown, stays nearby for the launch, and provides a point for being ready by the agreed time. Points buy a small daily privilege. Corrections become brief. Success gets named immediately. Evan is not suddenly cured, and the parents do not become saints. But the morning now asks less of the capacities that are weakest and reinforces the behavior they want. The family moves from "why won't he?" to what support is missing at the moment of performance. That is the clinical shift. If parents remember 5 things, let them be these. First, your child is not the diagnosis, and difficult behavior is not a complete description of character. Second, make expectations visible, brief, and doable. Third, give positive feedback faster and more often than correction. Fourth, regulate first, then teach and rehearse. Fifth, if the plan repeatedly fails, reassess the child, the environment, the developmental demand, and the treatment, not merely the parent's determination. The goal is not instant obedience. The goal is a child who gradually develops skill, confidence, accountability, and a secure relationship with the adults helping them grow. Good parenting for ADHD is not louder parenting. It is more external, more immediate, more predictable, and more compassionate. And when the adults change the system, the child finally has a fairer chance to show what they actually know.